Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the shop to another audio project today, and a project that I have not done before. Several years ago, I was very lucky to find some JBL, James B. Lansing, LA, produced in LA. I think in the 1960s, some JBL speakers, and JBL was really a great name in audio. And I was able to snag them for an excellent price. Well, I used them for a couple of years, and then a little bit of a problem developed. What sometimes happens with the older speakers is the foam surrounds that allow the speaker itself to flex go bad, and I went ahead and I ordered some new surround rings here, and I've been working to mount them because I'm not getting the appropriate response out of these with this fracture lines along here. Let me show you what I did last night. Last evening I tried my first install here, and I have to say, for first time out of the gate, it worked pretty well. I still have to secure the outer ring and glue that down, but it's quite a process, and it's one that you have to be very careful of because you don't want to puncture the dust cone in the middle, and yet this has to be cut out in here, and the outside of it has to be cut away from, where it's glued on, and that's a process that really requires care. I've been using a X-Acto knife that's mounted in a pair of vice grips here, and this is super sharp, and this has allowed me to cut away. And the kit also includes some glue here for gluing down the new surrounds on the unit, and I've been using a little bit of this too along the way. So let's get to it and see what the process is. First thing I've been doing is very carefully taking the knife and cutting away the old surround from the cone here, and it's going to be your first step. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the directions that were given to me, but I think I had pretty good success doing it my way here. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting this outer ring, and then we're going to remove the old surround. Once again, you got to do this very carefully. You want to have good control on the knife, and you want to avoid any type of spastic movement that could result in damaging the cone. So I'm going around the outer edge, and in a very controlled way, I'm just removing the old surround. It's supposed to be very flexible, and this one is all dried out from too many years, too many songs being played, and it has just plain gone bad. So I'm going to continue working this around. I'm trying to guide it as gently as possible. I do not want to do anything to cut the cone. And we've almost got it broken away here. I'm going to turn this way. And I think an X-Acto knife is a great thing to use in this process, because you do have a little bit of an element of control over it, and it also is super sharp, so you're probably not going to have any slippage when you're cutting the cone away. Not the cone, yeah, cutting the cone away from the old surround. And it's going to bounce up a little bit up and down, and that's okay. I'm going to work it around this way now, and what you're trying to do is avoid puncturing it all. And it now appears that I've just about got this cut away here, and I'm going to kind of steady the cone on the inside, and I'm trying to remove as much of the old surround as possible. without damaging, as I said, without damaging the cone. And I think that's pretty good. We can kind of clean that a little bit, but now that is loose. Now it's time to very carefully remove the old funky surround material, probably no doubt from the 1960s. And it is just plain worn out. Okay? Next I'm going to take a chisel and very carefully, I'll show you down here. I'm working that chisel around, trying to keep it in one piece and removing it once in a while, because you're going to use this as a fresh gluing surface, and you want that to have as much of the old surround removed as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and finish removing all of that and try to clean it up as much as possible. Trying to keep it from falling down in the inside too. It may be inevitable. It's not going to hurt anything down there. It's not going to affect the audio quality. Oops, sorry about that. And I find a chisel really works quite well for this. So let me complete this part. Next thing we're going to do is very carefully cut the cone from the dust cover, and you have to do this very carefully. You don't want any puncturing at all, and I'm going to try to steady this while I move that around on the outside. Take your time on this. Try to avoid slips if you can. Even if it's one stab at the knife at a time. It took me quite a while to remove the one on the other side. That'll release the cone, and then we can go ahead and start the gluing process for replacing the foam. Good deal. Successfully cut away the cone. We're going to be reusing this again. Take your time. You're going to need to replace that and re-glue it. It is time now. We have one of our foam rings, and we're going to glue this to the cone. Let me grab one of these. We're actually going to set this up here so that the cone glues into the new surround surface here, like so. And we're going to use the glue provided. We're going to need a flat surface, and we're going to have to be patient to let that dry a couple hours. In the meantime, we can turn our attention to the speaker that was done last night. On this particular speaker, I did everything except glue down. I re-glued the center dust cover, and I'm going to go ahead and glue the new surround down on the metal. As soon as I go ahead and glue the new surround here to this unit in the appropriate location using the glue. Sorry about that, the camera cut out a little bit. I was saying, don't worry about when you place this. I have a glue line along here, and I'm trying to center up this cone on that piece. And don't worry if you get a little bit of glue coming out. This dries very flat. This glue, it has no shine to it. There's nothing that's really going to affect the sound of that. Now I'm going around and just making sure that it's evenly pressed into position. Okay, and we're going to allow that to dry. I'm checking that out to make sure it's all the way down. And we can put a tiny little bit of weight on top once I get this thing really super set, because this glue is a pretty powerful glue. And once it sets up, it kind of sets up. So I'm going to put the heavy welder's glove on top of it. It's not going to be that much weight on top. And then I'll put just a brush on top of it to equalize the weight coming down, so that the glue makes good contact with both surfaces. Okay? Now it's time for me to get this glued down into position, which is the final, and then we'll have to let this kind of dry overnight. Try to avoid any pieces on there. I've already thoroughly cleaned the surface. I'm going to have to put some weight on top of here to hold that down also once I have the glue down. But I'm going to try to carefully lift up the side here and apply a bead of glue to the metal surface all the way around. Try not to get it on the upper part of the surround here. Okay. Don't worry if you do. It's not going to be a huge issue because, as I said, the glue dries flat and clear. Just make sure that you get a good bead all the way around there, and I'm pretty happy with that. Kind of clean that up, and now we're going to let that set for a couple minutes. Okay. Before we go ahead and push that down, I'm going to clean my hands up. This is an important part of the process. You don't want any smudges or dirtiness on there, so we're going to let this set up for a couple minutes. If you have any excess glue, just remove it. We'll start kind of pre-positioning it here. A little too much glue on that area. Raise that up a little bit so that makes good contact over there. And we're going to kind of go along the edge and begin to press that down. We want full contact with this foam surround onto the metal of this silver retaining piece here, okay? And just keep pushing it down till it gets tacky enough to hold down there, and then we'll put a little weight on it, and that should be the final for that surround. And it's going to take a while for that glue to get tacky enough to keep that held down in position. So what we're going to do is we're just going to be patient, and that'll wrap that up. I've put a little bit of spool of wire here to sort of depress the cone a little bit to help ensure a better seal, and I also have a not too heavy a box cutter on the back that's helping to keep that section pushed down behind there. Now it's just a question of allowing things to dry very thoroughly and moving ahead with the project. We're just about over 25% of the way towards having some nice refoamed speakers. Been moving right along. I have the other unit. The first one is drying over here on top of that bucket. I have it resting on there. The cone to the left is drying too. The new hood surround is on there, and things are coming along pretty good. I now have another cone that has been placed here. I'm going to allow that. It's important it dries super good, and I'll go around it with a bead of glue, and that leaves one more to be removed. Boy, these surrounds really took a beating, didn't they? Okay, we got the last two cones off, and the new surrounds are mounted. Now we just have to be real patient again and let them dry before we reinstall. This is definitely going to be a job that's going to require a lot of patience for sure. Welcome back. Just re-gluing the inner dust covers for the speakers. The magnets and all that down there, just being very careful to do that. And I also have it over here. I've now set these in place, and it's not the greatest glue job in the world, but as I say, it will dry flat and clear. So the important thing is to have nice surrounds and be able to have these lay down really flat along the edge once it's time to hook them in. So pretty happy. I'm going to let these dry really well now. All right, everybody, welcome back to the day after here. We've allowed the glue to set up really well. I've pre-tested the speakers here. The speaker coil is moving freely. There's no binding. The quality looks pretty good on the install. I've already put the grill on the other unit over there, and I'm going to install it here. And we're going to finish up with a little bit of an audio test today. We're going to be using the SX780 Pioneer, one of my favorite receivers. We're going to be using the amplifier function on it. We're going to be running in a little bit of music to see how everything turned out. Well, it's a moment of truth. Time to do a little bit of music through the refoamed JBL speakers. And I do subscribe to a music service called Epidemic Sound, www.epidemicsound.com. And I think they have a great selection of copyright-free music. I think it's about $100 a year, and you don't have to worry about anything with YouTube. It automatically links it to your account. I'm not sponsored by them, but I have to say I've enjoyed the aspects of not worrying about the music that I download and use. And one of my favorites is Nordic Shine on there, and it has a very wide range of sounds and instrumentations. And I think it sounds really, really beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and record on my Zoom H1 recorder and go around and shoot some video and interlace it over top of the Zoom and put it all together and integrate it into a nice piece. There is the legendary wall of sound from ceiling to floor. Something that I've had for the better part of 5 years now, and it's a wonderful way to showcase my vintage audio. So let's go ahead and get started and listen to Nordic Shine. On the way out, if you would be so good as to hit the thumbs up button, and your comments are always welcome. Thanks for being along on another vintage audio project as we replace the foam surrounds on the JBL 77 speakers. Thanks, everybody.